Okay, so for those of you who might be wondering why I haven't covered Kris Tyson already, the reason is because I sort of knew that there would be a lot of nuance and information that we would have to heavily depend on to make a fair and critical video. This situation keeps expanding and evolving every single day, so every day is a day that I stop writing this video to backtrack and correct inferences and information that is inaccurate. So in order to properly make this video, I have decided that I will timeline and include all of the relevant evidence that has been uncovered in the past 2 weeks. I have spent an unnecessary amount of time researching and investigating, as well as clearing up a lot of misrepresented information purely for the sake of presenting something that anyone who watches this can take as a definitive presentation of evidence, as clean-cut and as unbiased as possible, with my fair assessment along the way. On top of that, I will chronicle how this entire Kris Tyson drama started and unfolded since the eruption of the Shad-based allegations, which I will actually have another video dedicated to exploring the negative and disgusting past of Shadman and his supporters. So let's begin with what I like to call the trigger to this giant explosion of chaotic drama and information. This entire situation as it stands started with a video titled "This Video Will Make You Hate Kris Tyson," which served as a video to highlight Kris Tyson's connection and interaction with an infamous obscenity artist, Shadman. To give a little bit of insight into Shadman, he is an artist that rose to popularity in the mid to late 2010s for his obscene, sexually explicit art that notably and disgustingly depicted not just violent, sexually exploitative scenes, but also graphic, unspeakable depictions of children. As people became aware of this video, it quickly became a huge talk in the commentary scene that opened the floodgates of what would soon become Kris Tyson's downfall. Kris Tyson received a lot of criticism at first, with many holding the position that Kris was a lolicon based on her consumption of media from Shadman and other artists that depicted minors in sexual situations. Now, some would argue that this type of quote-unquote edgy and gooner behavior was par for the course at the time, and while there is some truth to this notion, this argument only partially works to the initial drama where Kris Tyson was reprimanded for supporting and interacting with Shadman. Keep this in mind because we will come back to this shortly. Now, supporting Shadman has never been something I agreed with. Anyone with a strong moral compass can agree that sexualizing minors is absolutely disgusting, even if it is a drawing. If 15-year-old me at the time could understand this back in 2016, everyone else could have too. However, there is a truth to the claim that in the past, many were openly defending and supporting Shadman. Now, this does not mean that I am defending Kris or others for their disgusting behavior for that matter. Let me make that clear. I am just expanding on the rhetoric for the sake of clarifying the discourse in chronological order. Now, while there was some truth to that rhetoric, that would also mean that Kris Tyson should not have been the only person to be criticized and reprimanded for their behavior, but also a plethora of others, which actually ended up happening in this case, and a good sum of creators were discovered to have interacted with and even endorsed Shadman in some instances. This actually happened a few days after the fact, and this is something that I will explore in depth in another video. Maybe. Now, let's get back to the argument from before. Some people would argue that this type of quote-unquote edginess was commonplace, and while there is a truth to that, it does not excuse how reprehensible and disgusting the actions were. But something that some people are still missing, and that some people are willingly being ignorant to, which is what I aim to correct, is that these were not just isolated incidents. There are layers of how bad things are. If it was true that Kris Tyson was only making these quote-unquote jokes to be edgy, then there could be some leeway to be given. There could be some understanding. You could reasonably infer that Kris was just being edgy and they were being unfairly criticized for something that was so commonplace. And you could make the claim that maybe Kris Tyson has changed since then. And while that may be true, this argument to defend Kris Tyson completely falls apart when Kris Tyson's history on the internet is compiled and connected, which again is my aim. Kris Tyson not only fully supported and endorsed Shadman, but there are several other cases where Kris Tyson repeatedly exhibited indulgence, consumption, and talked about sexual implications of minors. Here are a few examples. In leaked Reddit archives, we can see things that Kris Tyson has said, such as, "But you can still get teen love, 14-year-olds always stay 14. In another archive, he says, "Why the fuck would you use your VR headset for anything other than 3D lolly gang rape porn?" To some people, as disgusting as these archives are, as disgusting as they are to read, some people are still willingly interpreting these archives as jokes. But there is one particular one that stands out to me that is super hard to defend as anything but depraved. And this archive goes as, "For a while now, I've been obsessed obsessed with the above. Often when I see a woman I find attractive, I imagine what her pooping would look like and how her farts smell. Surely this isn't normal. Has anyone else felt this? This was posted by somebody who isn't Kris Tyson, but somebody responded to this post saying, "You should check r/real scat girls." And then Tyson replies with, "I thank thee for my new fetish." And if that isn't enough for some of you, then I implore you to also take a look at these. In this Discord log, they're sending pictures of people, presumably, and Kris is saying she is only 14 with an attachment. And then some people are saying, what you think she was, 16 and legal in some states. And then somebody says, oof, of course, with somebody else replying, if she's 14, I'm 14. And I don't think I need to mention the stuff that was already explored in the Hate Kris Tyson video, where Kris indulged in extremely disgusting quote-unquote art featuring Caillou, Mabel, and Dipper, or his request for Beast Boy, among many others, who are all underaged. A lot of people are unfortunately attempting to defend Kris Tyson by banking on the limited idea that some of these are taken out of context and are simply edgy jokes. To an extent, I can understand that, only to a very limited extent, but only if these instances were never expanded upon, which is simply not the case. Let's say hypothetically, these were the only pieces of evidence to have surfaced, just that and nothing else. There would be validity to that defense, however, these are not isolated, and they are not limited occurrences. Interactions like these and behavior like this was recorded and seen in multiple and exceedingly consistent situations, which completely knocks the simply edgy jokes defense into nothing but pure cope. When you connect these Reddit posts, tweets, and interactions in general, you will see that there is a consistent behavior with Kris indulging and reveling in pornographic material that in some cases is morally reprehensible. That alone is enough to raise anyone's suspicion and wonder, what kind of strange filth does this individual actually enjoy? Some would argue that it's just art and that no one is actually being harmed, but that does not excuse that you, as a rational, functional, and healthy-minded human adult, should not be enjoying this material, and you should find it morally unacceptable. Anyone with a normal grasp of reality can understand that even viewing this type of material is reprehensible in its own right, no matter how incomparable it is to actual damaging material. It's a matter of integrity and strong morals, not a matter of how fictitious it is. I understand the arguments some may have and can apply logic to them, but there are things that no matter how logical or rational it is, there is simply no moral or integral justification for it. So, for morons akin to Rev Says Desu, or porn brain-rotted morons, I do not think it is justifiable to excuse this behavior. That being said, on the premise of lolly consumption alone, I would still not condemn Kris Tyson for being a pedophile. The word pedophile has some very dangerous and disastrous implications, and it's not something that anyone should egregiously throw out to people. But besides the dangerous claim of carelessly and recklessly applying that label to Kris, which many will do, I do think that some people are morally justified in feeling that way. It is important to clarify that while yes, Kris Tyson has participated in some very disgusting and dubious behavior, she has not committed a crime as of these instances. To those who are still on the fence about Kris Tyson, however, for these exact defenses that I brought up, I understand. And for the very reason that I understand, I want to convince you that Kris Tyson is not someone worth defending. And I will expand on that more as I cover each development of the drama throughout this video. Shortly after the explosion of lolly allegations, a video by Prism was discovered by several media entities, most notably a YouTuber named Brion. This individual uploaded a video that would get over 500,000 views within 24 hours of the upload, which I personally think caused a cascading effect of others sharing Prism's video. This video, as poorly presented and constructed as it was, with many horrible insinuations and implications, did give us a glimpse into how Kris Tyson poorly and immaturely conducted herself around minors, which would also give us a glimpse into Discord, Twitter, and even Snapchat interactions between Kris Tyson and said minors, most notably an individual by the name of Lava GS. In Prism's video, Prism presented several screenshots and bits of circumstantial evidence that showed Kris Tyson's connection to Lava GS and inappropriate interactions between each other. However, due to Prism's very obvious personal bias and rhetoric-fueled investigative work, if you could even call it investigative, there is a lot of information he presented with very bad faith assumptions that would lead many individuals into a huge jump to conclusions. One notable example being Prism's very charged and insinuating language when referring to certain things in this presentation of quote-unquote evidence, particularly the part where Prism discusses Kris meeting Lava in person.
Anytime that someone is taking a camper van somewhere, bringing it out in the desert or the middle of the woods, it's very unnecessary because there's RV parks, there's the Walmart parking lot, there's plenty of areas you can go instead of going to a place that's very unfamiliar to you to camp out there, especially in a secluded area. So the real question is, if he was talking to Kris Tyson, who is interested in both men and women, since he was 13 years old and Kris Tyson was in college, why did he take a camper van out to see him and take it out in the middle of the woods in this secluded area? And then he met up with him like 2 days later, like the picture was posted. It's, why did this happen? When you're talking about an inappropriate topic with someone who you know is 14 years old and you meet up in person, it all looks very suspicious. And that is why when we interviewed him, we were trying to ask if he had been molested or if someone had talked inappropriately to him, because we genuinely believe that something might have happened to him. Although he claims nothing happened, very well, there might have been nothing that ever happened, but still, talking about inappropriate topics with someone that you know is a middle schooler or someone that just entered in high school, when you're like 7 years older, it is highly inappropriate, and that is illegal. That's not legal. It's not a legal thing to do. This whole discussion or joke revolving around sending him nudes or whatever, it's disgusting.
Evidently insinuating that a 13-year-old individual is being taken out to the woods after they turned 16 for suspicious purposes, while also clarifying Kris Tyson's interest in men and women, does not paint a very good picture in a lot of people's minds. There's a lot of motivated inferences and assertions in this video that clearly were meant to give an individual viewing this video a far more malicious idea of what was actually going on. Not just that, but Prism outright claims that he interviewed Lava and asked him questions about potential molestation or inappropriate behavior, in which he claims that Lava denied such a thing. But the fact of the matter is that Prism actually lied about this. Evidently, as claimed by Lava GS himself, Prism in fact did interview Lava, but not within the context of sexual exploitation, as Prism claimed. No, Lava was interviewed by Prism and friend Verdius in regards to a potential editing position, and no actual questions of sexual exploitation were asked. This was actually claimed on the record by Prism himself, admitting that he lied about the context of the interview, which means that nothing he asked could have ever substantiated his suggestion of exploitation unless Lava GS was specifically asked about it, which he wasn't. Here's the clip.
I want Prism to answer this because I found a comment. Some other people have found the comment that Lava put out like 4 weeks ago. I sent it to Chud saying, "This video is not true and disgusting. Ava Kris has never done anything wrong, and for you to make up these laws and create this narrative is just wrong. Also, when you interviewed me for a supposed editing job, why did you lie? So you can take the clips out of context? This is disgusting." And then Prism says, "Care to comment why, when you were 14 and Kris was 20 to 21, you and Kris Tyson had bro talk where he was joking about sending you nudes and flirting with you on Twitter?" So
Yeah, that seems like.
Hold on. Let me try to respond to this. I'll let you say it in a second, but like let me hear what this guy has to say. Like, so what is it? How should we respond to that? Like, what are you asking?
No, why? So, real question: why didn't he respond? Like, why is he having all these other people respond for him? Why can't he come on and respond? Because the thing is, at the end of the day, the question we want to know is, why is he not acknowledging these tweets? Why am I getting shit for just pointing it out?
well, you're getting shit because he thought he was
Yeah,
going
no one
into
else
there
was
for
doing
a
anything
fucking
about it.
job interview, for an interview.
Oh, so
and
I
you just-
see a guy inappropriately messages a minor online. I see he met up with him in person. I see he's into pedophile art. And you're saying, oh, well, you didn't tell him you were making an expose on Kris Tyson? Oh, it's like, yeah, no
No,
shit, I didn't tell him.
No, dude,
It's
that's not what I'm
investigating.
saying.
That's what it
I'm
is.
saying is that I know he knew that he was a minor when they met up. I'm saying I don't know if he knew he was a minor when he
are you
did
really
that
saying this was
messaging.
okay?
And that is what you were supposed to do. You were supposed to prove that he
I'm
knew
not
that he was
perfect.
messaging a minor, and you didn't.
Listen,
And that's the
Snaggle.
problem.
One
That is
sec.
the problem.
So, Prism spun a narrative and presented it as something for people to infer as much worse than it actually was. And the problem here is that so many people took these assertions and ran with them, making jokes or claims that Kris Tyson took an RV out in the woods to endanger a child when that simply was not the case. And when Lava GS spoke out to correct the record, many were not too keen on hearing his side of the story, but rather implied or outright claimed that Lava was being paid off by Mr. Beast, or that Lava was too young to realize that he was taken advantage of, or theorized that maybe Lava was too traumatized to properly understand the damages at hand. Because of issues like these, it is very hard to take people like Prism and Prism himself seriously. It was very hard to believe anything he had to say could ever substantiate the idea that Kris Tyson was actually malicious because of the dishonest and bad faith presentation of the evidence. That does not mean, however, that he wasn't onto something. There very much was some information brought to the table by Prism that could have very well been used to uncover a lot of disgusting and dangerous behavior in regards to Kris Tyson. The main issue I aim to tackle here in regards to Prism is that Prism tainted the case by being dishonest in several aspects of his presentation, making him unfit to make any sort of assertion or implication which would only serve as a way to smear Kris Tyson. Now let me sort of repeat myself. Prism did have evidence that we can use when analyzing this entire Kris Tyson situation. This segment here only serves as my attempt to clear the waters that Prism negligently and rhetorically muddied, so keep this in mind, because we will come back to the screenshots Prism compiled later. Now, to end off this segment, I do want to say that I am not defending Kris Tyson. I don't want people to assume that she isn't culpable just yet. I am simply clarifying any misconception that Kris Tyson may have groomed Lava, which is something that a lot of people on the internet have concluded based on malicious and disingenuous reportings on Twitter or politically charged tabloids. That is not to say that Lava isn't a victim, but it would be inherently dishonest and incorrect to assume otherwise. Innocent until proven guilty, regardless of how disgusting Kris Tyson's behavior truly was. This leads me into Lava's statements, which also set off yet another cascade of information being released, and we will get into that shortly. Let's begin with Lava's tweets. As the Prism information was making waves on Twitter, in the midst of that, before Lava made a statement on his own accord, Keemstar would actually be the one to convey Lava's first response to the allegations. Keemstar's tweet goes as follows. Mr. Beast connected me directly to Lava, the alleged Kris Tyson groomed victim. Lava says, I was not groomed by Kris Tyson. I did not meet Kris Tyson by myself. I met Kris and the Mr. Beast crew with my family present. I ran a Discord with Kris Tyson when I was 13, and edgy, inappropriate jokes were said. That's it. With the limited context and information at the time, this would evidently appear to be the case, but that does not absolve the issue at hand. Kris Tyson did have inappropriate interactions with a minor, and while there were no implications or inferences that it was grooming, it is still morally inexcusable to have inappropriate conversations with a minor, public or not. As an adult, you should know better and be responsible enough not to do these things, regardless of how tame or severe the interactions were. So, at this point in time in the drama, you could reasonably infer that Kris Tyson engaged in inappropriate behavior around a singular individual minor in a non-predatory fashion, which is still reason enough to have concern for Kris Tyson's unacceptable behavior when it came to her position in Mr. Beast. Let's not detract from that. But the status quo would soon and rapidly change again for the third time. So, let's continue. Lava would continue to make statements on Twitter, such as, can you guys help me counter all these lies? Kris's messages to me were sent in public Discord servers or groups, but everyone is framing it as if it was one-on-one. Kris literally did nothing wrong. A day after this, as the situation unfolded, Kris Tyson herself would actually make her statement. "I would like to apologize for any of my past behavior or comments if it hurt or offended anyone. It was not my intent. Seeing recent events, we've mutually decided it's best I permanently step away from all things MrBeast and social media to focus on my family and mental health. I want to add, I never groomed anyone. The person who gets brought up in these accusations, Lava GS, has vocally supported that they are false. Having said that, I humbly apologize to anyone I have hurt with my unacceptable social media posts, past actions, and to those who may feel betrayed by how I used to act online. To lump these two factors together to create a narrative that my behavior extended beyond bad edgy jokes is disgusting and did not happen. In past years, I have learned that my old humor is not acceptable. I cannot change who I was, but I can continue to work on myself. I don't want these accusations to impact the hundreds of people who work at MrBeast, which is why I have stepped away." Little did we know that what she is claiming actually had a lot of truth to it, but not in the way that anyone would expect. The following day, on July 24, 2024, in an attempt to detract but also correct the record that Lava had created, another alleged victim came out and posted a tweet claiming, "Ava Kris Tyson from MrBeast preyed upon me when I was 15. This is my story."
Kris Tyson from MrBeast used me, manipulated me, and did very inappropriate things with me while I was about 15 years old. I was actually friends with Lava GS at the time, who is the main victim of Kris that everyone has been talking about these last few days, who claims he isn't a victim, but we all know he is, and we all know he probably got paid off. Not only that, but he's also under an NDA from when he worked for MrBeast Gaming for 2 years, and he tried to get me to join MrBeast Gaming himself, Lava. He's the one who actually sent me the contract and tried to get me to sign the NDA, at which point I ended our friendship because I knew they were just trying to silence me. Me and him were both initially involved in running Kris's Discord server, helping him set up his Twitch streams and moderating them.
Nate's calling me. Hey, what's up? You're on stream.
You just leaked your address. Please end your stream. As well as other technical back-end things that he needed help with. This Discord server that we were a part of had about 10 people in it, most of whom were minors. I'm not sure how they got in there, other than me and Lava. He won a giveaway and Kris invited him after that, and Kris invited me after I saw one of his tweets asking for help setting up a Garry's Mod server for the 10 million subscriber MrBeast video. This turned into us having lots of private conversations with Kris and playing video games with him for hours on end. Not only did we do a lot of unpaid work for him that he promised he would pay us for, he would also frequently bring up sexual topics that was definitely not appropriate to bring up around 15, 16-year-olds, especially with him being like, I don't know, 20, 21 years old. He would even go as far as linking me several different corn and hentai videos throughout the time of me talking with him. Not only that, but he had an NSFW bot in his Discord server before he made it public. So when it was just a private server, his little circle of minors. And he would use this NSFW bot to spam different corn images, alongside all these 15-year-olds. He would also frequently call me dad and daddy, as well as the others, which I guess we all kind of just took as a joke at the time. You have to think this is someone who we looked up to at the time, we idolized, we thought was the coolest person in the world, so they couldn't really do any wrong in our eyes. But looking back, I was definitely uncomfortable at being called daddy by a 20-year-old. Even just thinking about it now, it's just uncomfortable. This server later went public and became his official Discord server, but before it did, he had me and Lava spend multiple days scrubbing this Discord server clean of all of the N-words he had sent in it, as well as his friends, as well as deleting the NSFW channels and making sure no one could see that he was spamming corn to minors. This story is so much bigger and runs so much deeper than any of you really realize, so if you want to hear more and you want a part 2, let me know.
As egregious as it is to claim that Kris Tyson was predatory, most of Nathan's claim was actually not unfounded, as this would serve as yet another door opening to more information that only allows anyone paying attention to the situation to further conclude that Kris Tyson is indefensible, inexcusable, and deserving of admonishment, scrutiny, chastising, or any other word you want to use to claim that Kris Tyson is completely unforgivable and worth ostracizing. In a now deleted tweet, Lava responded to Nathan, claiming that Nathan was not being entirely truthful, that he was unreliably making these claims. Keep in mind, I am paraphrasing because the tweet got deleted. Lava also claimed that he never sent an NDA. He himself was not under an NDA either. He also said that the server was never scrubbed of any racism or pornographic material, and also said that they in fact were paid for their assistance in Mr. Beast's works. It did not take long for a couple of discrepancies to actually have been found in Lava's claims, though. The following day, Nathan W. would once again make another tweet showing more information in regards to the Kris Tyson case, and he said, "Everyone asked for proof, here it is. Ava Kris Tyson from Mr. Beast. My story, part 2, in which he would also attach this video."
This is part 2 to yesterday's video of me talking about Ava Kris Tyson and what they did to me when I was 15 years old. This video has all the proof in it, all the receipts, and all the screenshots, thanks to an old friend of mine who was a moderator in Chris's Discord server at the time, Cookie. Now, Cookie actually went ahead and downloaded logs of all the individual channels on Chris's server before it went public, knowing that this was kind of being covered up, and he kept the logs of it for himself. He actually reached out to me here on Twitter, and I'm going to provide a lot of the screenshots backing up the claims that I made that Lava refuted. For example, I made a claim that there was an NSFW channel in the server where Chris would spam corn. Here you can see Chris talking about locking down the NSFW channel to True Gods and Anointed only. By the way, this is in 2019. I was a True God and I was a minor. Not only that, but you can see me right below it, Nathan.rtx, saying this is a bad idea. So even I knew as a kid that this was a really bad idea. Here is Lava himself talking about starting the commencement of cleaning the server, word for word. I said he was talking about scrubbing the server. He says that never happened. Here you can see him talking about it, as well as me and Cookie himself talking about it. I just want to make this video real quick, disproving some of the claims that Lava refuted and showing that they actually are true, but I actually have thousands of Discord messages to go through in these logs that I was just provided by Cookie. Shout out to him for giving me them, and I'm going to be going through them and posting an update video with some more proof.
From this point forward, Lava took a massive hit to his credibility, and many were unwilling to hear him out anymore, as Nathan dropped examples on top of examples that Nathan knew something Lava either forgot or was unwilling to expose, that only further perpetuated the idea that Kris Tyson was definitely negligent or exhibited some sorts of behavior that are not allowable towards children. This was Lava's statement. Based on the recent screenshots and messages, I would like to say a statement about the Discord. This was 5 or 6 years ago, and I thought I had a good memory of the situation, but I was wrong. After reading the chat logs, this stuff was inappropriate and wrong. I spoke based on my memory of the situation, and I still do not remember these conversations, but they definitely happened. These conversations should not have happened with people at the age I was at the time. I strongly condemn them. I still believe I am not a grooming victim, but these conversations should not have happened with me and any other minor in this Discord. I was a minor in this situation, and not the adult influencer who shouldn't have allowed this to happen. I did not see this wrong at the time. And then he said, clarification. This is only related to the Discord server, and not any other statements I have made regarding Ava Tyson. When referring to the situation, I'm talking solely about the Discord server. I still stand by this. Then he refers back to a post he posted on July 24th, saying, I commend Mr. Beast for taking the situation seriously and hiring a third-party investigator while also taking the appropriate actions of cutting ties with Ava. While the allegations involving my name aren't true, I feel there is a lot of other allegations that deserve to be investigated thoroughly. Later this same day, Lava would make a post adding on to his initial statements. Lava says, I appreciate everyone taking this tweet as me talking about everything I have stated about Ava Tyson. It is not. This is only about the Discord logs, and the reason I spoke on my memory being bad is I have thousands of conversations in this Discord. I did not speak to Ava 24/7 even before the Discord server. We spoke a few times a week, and that's why I'm able to remember what actually happened between me and her. I still believe the other allegations deserve to be investigated. I'm not defending the actions of Ava. Also, the Great Cleansing is not related to the original cleansing the Discord statement Nathan made, and he knows that. This Great Cleansing was years after the server went public. We were talking about scrubbing any word that might be against TOS so we could get a Discord partnership. This includes words like boomer, porn, cum, and others. Below is more logs from that Discord confirming that. I still do not remember the NSFW channel stuff, but it's been proven to have existed from logs. At this point, it is evident that Lava is somewhat of an unreliable narrator whose claims are not consistent throughout this ordeal. But regardless of that, to claim that Lava was groomed because of his lack of clarity and recollection is still unjust and banks on the incredibly unfortunate circumstance where a minor was in fact exploited. However, because of Lava's incompetence, as harsh as it is to say, the logs within the server were not only fully confirmed to be real through Lava's corroboration, but also were fully compiled and released. Which leads me to the final segment of this video, the evidence. So, let's start from the beginning. This is where everything I said that we will get into finally gets assessed. Let's begin. Kris Tyson provably indulged in and purchased Shadman's artwork. We have multiple examples of this, not just from tweets, but also references to Shadman's art in Discord logs as well. Not to mention, Shadman's art being on display in their place of residence at one point. We can more than reasonably infer, based on some of these interactions, that Kris Tyson absolutely enjoyed Shadman's art beyond just edgy freedom of expression rhetoric. She was definitely Gooner-minded. Just to reinforce that, there is significant evidence to prove that Kris Tyson absolutely reveled and enjoyed the consumption of porn to many degrees, from scat fetishes to hentai to depictions of lolly, drawn minors. There is no way that you can reasonably argue that Kris Tyson only supported Shadman because it was just the popular rhetoric at the time. That argument no longer holds any merit. Even if that was the case, it doesn't make it morally correct and is still something worth concern. Moving past the support of Shadman, it is very evident based on previous examples and newly surfaced Discord logs that Kris Tyson did in fact voluntarily indulge in and enjoyed lolly, as she made several posts expressing her interest in seeing depictions of underage characters, jokes or not. It is only reasonable to infer that Kris did enjoy lolly due to the abundance of times he refers to them or underage individuals, such as these examples. In one case, we have Kris saying, "If you're into step-sibling fucking, Arrow Manga Sensei is good." It was brought to my attention by someone else that that series depicts a lot of minors in suggestive scenes, which by anyone's standards is super inappropriate. There's also this example where Kris shares an image saying she is only 14. Damn. So, just to reiterate, there is no doubt that Kris Tyson definitely enjoyed this disgusting content beyond just the premise of art. Not that anyone could disagree at this point. Not to mention, Finster also corroborated Kris Tyson's interest in hentai via their own private interactions, but at this point, that's just beating the dead horse.
But then I saw this. This is Lava responding in 2018 to Ava, which said, "Does she know about your hentai addiction?" And I had the, Peter Quill fucking eyes wide open shot after he figures out his dad his mom. I had this with that tweet because Ava has spoken to me about hentai, which is fine in the context of two adults having a conversation, especially when one of them does work like me. And it wasn't like it was sprung on me either. There was an ask of can we talk about this? And I said yes. But under no circumstances should a child have ever heard that, you know? Having said that, I don't know how they heard it. They talked a lot publicly, and it seems like a bit privately.
Warning, I'm going to go on a little bit of a tangent, so now let's talk about Prism for a second. The only notable thing that came out of that, considering his video was absolutely trash, was the fact that Lava came out against him to talk about the Discord interactions and Prism's interpretation of the very limited information at hand. Prism's information wasn't very good, and honestly, there was very little, but it did lead to a domino effect where Nathan felt compelled to denounce Lava's claim that there was no inappropriate interactions after Lava called out Prism for spinning a narrative. This is honestly something that Prism got really lucky on, because without Nathan's piece of the puzzle, Prism's coverage was extremely limited, with only one or two screenshots actually being something worth questioning, such as the hentai addiction interaction coming for America, or the RV and the Woods conversation. Without the information we know as of July 27th, Prism simply had guesses and sandcastles. I cannot stress that enough. Prism was an incompetent moron, and within the status quo of July 23, Prism simply had almost nothing. But to be fair, as much as I dislike the guy, he was onto something. A bumbling buffoon that got lucky enough to accidentally stumble upon information that led into a larger ordeal. And this is where we get to the Discord logs. With the Discord logs comes the most damning conclusion in my opinion. Kris Tyson owned and operated a Discord server that housed sexual conversations, inappropriate jokes, and most importantly, exposed minors to potentially pornographic and inappropriate media and content. Someone by the name of Cope and Seeth actually went through the effort of decompiling the ages of some of the members in this server, which helps to measure just how bad everything really was, so pay attention to this image here. So, right off the bat, let's start with the worst of it. Somebody by the name of Brooke the Mom asks, so, what's the point of the deleted channel chat for exactly? And somebody by the name of Discount Milk says, porn. Automatically, this confirms the existence of a porn channel in the server, which is incredibly negligent and inappropriate, particularly because of the fact that there were minors present. Any reasonable adult should know better than to allow this type of negligence, and even on a legal matter, disseminating harmful material to a minor is something that is prohibited by law. Just to be safe and just to be clear, I am not making the claim that there were any laws broken here, so take what I said with a grain of salt. I am simply setting a bar for those that simply do not understand how bad this actually is. I am not a legal expert. The reason I say this is because some morons would argue the idiot excuse that it's the internet and minors would look at graphic material regardless. But fact of the matter is that as an adult, you are socially and morally held to a standard that requires you to not allow that by any means. So it should be extremely concerning as well as extremely condemnable that Kris was let known by Brooke about her concerns regarding inappropriate material in a server where minors were present. But what did Kris Tyson herself have to say about this? Let's go back to the logs. Brooke the Mom says, okay, I do think it's a bit inappropriate and should be limited to those who are actually of the appropriate age because it's open to everyone, is it not? In my opinion, there should be a bit more of a restriction on it. Brooke also says, I don't have any issue with the channel. What I have an issue with are minors that have access to said channels. Kris replies with, is there even a way to do that? And Discount Milk replies with, no, not really, no. Then Kris says, so what do we do, lol, remove it? And then Nathan says, no, people like it. Even if there was a way, anyone can lie about their age, LMFAO. Kris then says, yeah, true, and I mean, to be fair, the internet is full of porn. Discount Milk then says, Discord says that if you can't regulate it, don't have one. It's the responsibility of the server owner to prevent minors from viewing pornographic materials. Then Kris says, what am I, a parent? Discount Milk then says, lol. Lava then says, I say we get rid of it because of the fan base of Beast and Kris are mostly under 18. Shade then says, which is a minor by the way, that's true. And then somebody else says, well, I mean, at least make the channel locked to mods. Keep in mind, a lot of the staff are minors. The fact that Kris knew it was her responsibility and did nothing about it is grossly negligent and incredibly irresponsible, which is deserving of admonishment on its own, and she must be held accountable for this, as should anyone else, and any other Discord where stuff like this is an occurrence. Additionally, just to drive this point home and reinforce it further, porn was an extremely common occurrence in the server and in some cases would even be spam posted and people were encouraged to share. I think I already said this, but that's because things genuinely just keep getting worse the more we look into this. In possibly some of the absolute worst examples I've noticed out of these logs, sexual interactions between individuals that are probably and provably minors, such as Cookie, who was 16 at the time, occurred far too frequently. I'll read one example, but for the sake of avoiding redundancy, there are multiple of these that are just too similar. For the sake of clarity and so that all of you can understand, I'll still edit them on screen. Here's the worst of them. Cookie says, guys, I can't stop jerking off to traps. Please help. Star says, dude, same. Phew. Avery Lover 002 says, jerk to me. And then another person, Halsey, says, can I join? Cookie then says, I'm in the r/trap hentai Discord. Why a minor would be in that Discord, who knows? And then Star says, r/delicious traps is better. And then another person says, that one Patrick, facts. Star says, no quality, Cookie. Halsey says, I love traps, OMG. Cookie then says, you need a dick to jerk off, noob. Avery Lover 02 says, my feeling when Cookie of Gods faps to me. If it sounds like I'm utterly defeated when reading these, trust me, it's because I am. There is just so much and it's so frequent that it's just incredibly mind-numbing. Okay, let me gather my bearings. Then there's this example, which only adds to how bad things really get. An individual by the moniker of Daddy Logs, who is probably a 17-year-old girl, says, okay, sending my nudes. Dang. Guys, please don't show anyone, OMG. Sorry, I had to screenshot. Nathan RTX, who is the person who leaked these logs, says, that was very predictable, to be honest. Then Daddy Log says, please don't show. Nathan RTX says, disappointed. Originally wasn't strong with this one. Daddylog in this conversation then says, I was gonna send you hentai personally, but I didn't want you to be weirded out. Someone else says the only way you'd actually catch Nathan off guard is by sending actual nude pics cause he'll be expecting a meme. And then Daddylog replies, true, but legally I can't do that. I'm not advocating to actually do it. Nathan RTX says LMAO. Daddylog says when you turn 18, BB. Keep in mind, Nathan RTX at the time is still 15. And Nathan then says, makes a Discord server, adds not safe for work channel, 500 IQ. Daddylog then says, I made a Discord, it's about cats. Nathan then says, easy, legal workaround. At this point, the conversation devolves with people actually talking about the legality behind underage nudes. LS Themo chimes in saying, say you make nudes of yourself when you're like 15 years old, and you have these on your own device until you turn 18. Will it still be illegal? Zeg chimes in, yes, if they want to screw you over and someone sues you, they could label it as possession of child pornography. Daddylog then says, yes, it's illegal to even take nudes of yourself just as a 15-year-old, because even if they're of you and you don't send them, it's still child porn. Then Nathan says, that's possibly the dumbest shit I've ever heard. Elistimo says, I know. Zeg says, I know, but it's true. Nathan RTX then says, it's pictures of yourself. I doubt that's how it works. I'm not sure how much of this YouTube will allow, so I apologize for the excessive censoring that I'm gonna do. At this point, it is very evident that Kris Tyson has cultivated an environment where children are inappropriately talking to each other and even discussing incredibly dangerous topics. I don't have to explain to you why this is bad at this point. Everyone's alarm bells and red flags should be fully going off. And to make the claim that Kris didn't know would be being more charitable than she deserves. As in other cases, we see Kris Tyson herself acknowledge quote-unquote spicy conversations. We have this conversation here, for example, Bean saying, I am not a bitch, I am a thought. Get it right. Can of Soda then says, not a bitch, but a female dog. It's Hayden says, I'm not a bitch, I'm gay. Discount Milk then tags Kris talking about a vehicle. Kris then says, you kids want some alcohol? And then says, damn, that sucks, bruh. Kris then says, by the way, I enjoy thoughts. PMs are welcome. JK. Spicy DMs right now about cars. I need to make it clear that if this chart and these messages are to be believed, Bean is 14 years old. Bean confirms it here only to be asked, bitch, let me smash or shut up by Derv, who was also seen to be kind of a pest, further cementing that this was an environment that was definitely not safe for minors. Also, if research serves correct, and if both of these are the same individuals, Derv is a YouTuber who at the time was also a minor. Some may argue Kris may not have known, but that is completely unbelievable, as their next messages in this chat were only 13 messages after this. I apologize if I'm drawing this out, but additionally, just to further sound like a broken record and cement Kris Tyson's awful behavior, we have instances of Kris Tyson encouraging minors, including Daddylog, to share their Snapchat, and this is where the rabbit hole gets extremely deep. Keep in mind, Daddylog is probably 17. Let's look at this Discord log, for example. Daddylog says, don't add people back, please. This is my only way to communicate with you. And then Kris says, lol, jealous, lolly is jealous. Keep in mind, the context of this conversation is Daddylog complaining that Kris Tyson is adding too many people to Snapchat. Nathan RTX then says, wait, do I have your personal snap or public snap? Kris then says, personal. So automatically, we already know that there's a differentiation between Kris having not just one Snapchat account, but two of them. Nathan says, do you even have multiple? And then Kris says, I don't sign into my public one because it freezes my phone up. I want to bring something up. StockX is a marketplace where people mainly exchange footwear or other sorts of luxury brands. Keep this in mind because it's relevant. Right now, we're going to rapid fire a couple of interactions that Daddylog actually messaged into this Discord. We got messages from Daddylog directly pinging Kris the meme god saying, open my Snapchat, I miss you. Then we got another interaction with Daddylog saying, me and Kris are really close. He showed pictures of me to Chandler and someone else I don't remember, and I was really active in Ethan's stream, so Ethan added me on Snapchat and we're friends, kinda. Well, I don't talk to Jimmy personally. If these logs prove anything, it's that sexual occurrences happened in this server, porn was actively and avidly distributed, Kris Tyson had plenty of interactions with minors, some inappropriate, some not, and even had contact with a 17-year-old girl. And somewhere along the lines, I remembered, Jake the Viking made this tweet. He says, while we're at it, Kris should tell everyone how old the girl was he was snapping that sent him his first ever pair of Gucci slides. If these instances and occurrences are to be connected, we can infer that there is a more than likely chance that Kris Tyson knew some of these individuals on a more personal level. That is not to say that Kris Tyson groomed or preyed on anyone. I have to remove those assertions immediately. Do not jump to that assumption. But what I will say is that based on all of these interactions that I presented, which isn't even the tip of the iceberg, there is more than enough evidence to suggest that Kris Tyson cultivated an environment that was inherently inappropriate and unsafe for children. I have to be clear, there is an abundance of logs. There is an abundance of repeated instances of everything I showed you. There are so many interactions shown in these logs that are a cause for concern, and if I were to cover more, there would not be a stop to this video. This video would genuinely drag on for over an hour, trust me. So here is where I will start my closing statements and give a little bit of my opinion. So, undeniably, we can infer that Kris Tyson was more than likely a porn addict engaged in fetish material, from scat to, more disgustingly, lolly. That alone is incredibly questionable and concerning, but it does get worse. It would be one thing to just view some of these things as art, but notably, Kris saw these things as something to actually indulge in and get off to, which raises cause for concern yet again. Kris also hosted and interacted in a Discord server that had an abundance of minors, as insinuated and even corroborated by some of the members. In this server, Kris would not only make sexual jokes, post porn, or allow porn to be shared between each other, but he also allowed inappropriate interactions between the members, some of which were underage, to occur. If you may allow me to make a bold conjecture or theory craft, I feel like this is some of the absolute worst of it, as some of these individuals interacting this way could possibly not have known for certain the ages between each other. This means that unless they were exchanging each other's pictures or something to validate their identity, there was no definite way to know ages beyond believing someone at face value, and I'm pretty sure I don't have to highlight why that's bad. As a responsible adult who holds their standards intact and has integrity, Kris should have known better than to allow any potential risk or exposure of danger to come to any member in her server. But instead of acknowledging this issue, they simply just brushed it off as it being not their responsibility when it was brought to their concern. Furthermore, Kris encouraged interactions between each other, from adding each other on direct messaging platforms such as Snapchat to even asking members to meet her at public events. Again, that is not to say that anything bad would happen at these meets. It is simply pointing out consistent, irresponsible, negligent, and very concerning behavior. At this point, I'm abusing the long decomposed skeleton of a horse, so I'll leave anyone who views this video with this. If you are still willing to defend Kris Tyson, I understand that there are limitations to how you can apply certain labels such as pedo or groomer or predator, which is why I personally refrain from doing so myself, but with all the information at hand, you would be foolish to not look at Kris Tyson and understand there are several concerns that make her unfit to have a position undeserving of scrutiny or admonishment. She was rightfully removed from Mr. Beast, she is rightfully being reprimanded and criticized, and it is more than justifiable to hold her accountable for her actions, as should anyone who was as reckless and as negligent as Kris was. I gotta make this clear, this is not a trans issue, this is not a Mr. Beast issue, this is an internet issue, and Kris Tyson serves as an example of an abundance of wrong behavior that is more than prevalent on the internet as a whole. You would be delusional to assume Kris Tyson is anything but deserving of social contempt. That being said, this is where this video ends. Thanks for watching. For those of you still watching though, I want to say that the sexual assault allegation was incredibly dishonest and misleading. The soda cat stuff is too vague and thus too irrelevant to include in the grand scheme of this video, as we don't know anything about their personal interactions. This video only serves to unbiasedly, concisely, and clearly inform people of the entire drama, and I encourage people to refrain from making assumptions or inconclusive allegations. Furthermore, all of the information presented to you is how I decompiled it and assessed it, so if you notice anything wrong or misguided, please inform me. If you want me to cover more or correct the record on anything, please reach out to me or leave a comment. Thank you.